Just a minute early because I want to remind you, did everybody sign in outside? I feel like everybody did. Okay. If you're not part of the grant and you're here because you want to hear Dr. Pacansky-Brock speak, awesome. Please still sign in. Secondly, did everybody get a raffle ticket? No. What? Okay. We'll give you one. I should get two. Just one. All right, perfect. Oh, here. I have the bowl. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, last chance for the raffle. Okay. So as we collect last-minute raffle tickets, I'm Kim DRC. I'm the Dean of Instructional Support and Teaching Innovations. I like to call it the Kims. So you've got me, Kim DRC, you've got Kim Stankovich, and then outside in the back, you've got Kim Who. Kim Who, can you just wave? Yay. Listen, your delicious lunch and this event would not have happened without Kim Who, so a big hand for her. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so Dr. Pacansky-Brock has a tight schedule, so we are going to get started. Okay, I see one person. Hurry, come get a raffle ticket. Hi, welcome. Kim's going to give you a raffle ticket. And if you win, everybody's going to be really mad at you. Here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so for a $25 gift card to Starbucks. Ooh, where's the oohs and ahs? Try it again. Ooh, thank you. Okay, so that is what is on the line, and Michelle's going to pick the raffle. The pressure. Okay, read it out loud. Oh, are you mic'd? You're mic'd.
Not yet. 291510.
Who is it? Woo! Jane, congratulations. Congratulations. Okay, I'm going to turn this over. Thank you so much for attending. I'm going to turn it over to Kim Stankovich.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I am the other Kim Stankovich. I am the Faculty Professional Development and Teaching Innovations Coordinator. And I am, thank you. Okay, I'm so happy to welcome Dr. Michelle Pacansky-Brock back to our campus. She said I could call her Michelle. So Michelle is here for year 2 of our Culturally Responsive Pedagogy and Practices grant, as she is a leading voice in humanizing our pre-course contact with our students. So you are in for a real treat. If you've heard her speak before, you already know that. So I'm going to hand it over to Michelle, since she's the one we all want to hear from.
Thank you, Kim. You folks hear me okay? Okay, good. How many heard me last year? Just out of curiosity. I had some conversations. Okay, so here's the preface. Same title, very different presentation. First of all, because I can never do the same presentation twice. Does anyone else have that disorder? It's terrible, isn't it? But secondly, because everything, well, not everything, but a lot has changed. And so I am going to be framing humanizing in kind of a different way. And I'm telling you this because, in all honesty, I'm still kind of working through these ideas. So give me a little bit of grace. But also, the liquid syllabus is definitely going to be part of this, but there's a lot of other stuff too. Okay, so if you came here hoping for a deep dive on the liquid syllabus, I have some additional resources to support you. And the QR code on the screen and the URL, brokansky.com/saddleback25, either one of those will get you to a web page on my site that has the slides, as well as a list of resources at the bottom that will be referenced in the presentation. okay? There's also an option to leave a comment on the page. So if something comes up later and you want to loop back and, just ask me something or share a thought, that is certainly something that I welcome you to do. And I'd also like to credit Frank Gonzalez of Saddleback College, who is featured in the Liquid Syllabus that you see on the title slide. I led a Humanizing online STEM grant for 5 years. It wrapped up last June, and Saddleback was one of our partner colleges. And Frank not only completed our Humanizing Online STEM Academy, but he went on to be one of our wonderful facilitators as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So the themes we're going to explore today together include the social emotional backdrop in which we teach and students learn. Okay, how many of you in here are primarily in a teaching role? So a lot of you. How many of you would say you're in a support role primarily? How many are administrators? Not that administrators don't support. Okay. Did I miss, how many of your faculty counselors? No? Did I miss anyone? Okay. Just want to be sure. That's helpful to know because I'm focusing on teaching. So I assumed most people would be teachers, but I just wanted to be sure. The way we use technology influences who we are. That's going to be a big part of this conversation. And why we need to support and foster human connection in the AI era, and how we all can do it. So I'm going to provide 4 entrance points that at the end of the session that I hope you will carry with you as you move forward. The first thing I'd like to ask you to do is take a moment to just reflect on your experiences as a student in your life, and think about all those educators that you've had, and identify one that is memorable in a positive way. Do you hear that? I have a mechanical heart valve. That's literally my heart beating. So yes, I have technology in my heart. And every now and then that happens, sorry. That's just really funny. Okay, I'll keep talking. You won't hear it so much. But I live with that every day, seriously. It's like a beat of a drum, and I've lived with it for almost 20 years now, and hopefully a lot more years to come. Okay, and I'd like to ask that you identify 2 adjectives that describe that person, and think of those 2 adjectives in your mind. And I have an activity using a tool called Mentimeter that I'd like you to go to if you have your phone. I'm hoping you can use your phone to scan it and go out to the Mentimeter activity. It'll prompt you to add those 2 words. Do you want to move it? Okay, yeah, let's do that. Sorry about that. No, and I was going to. It doesn't always pick up. Okay. All right. Everyone get that okay? Okay, we're going to loop back to those results in just a little bit. So I'm going to move forward once I see all the phones go down, because then I know you'll have it. Okay, thank you for participating in that. We'll go back to that, I promise, okay? So I'm using this term humanizing to frame this conversation. And so I just want to unpack a little bit about what I mean by that. It's a term that can be used in lots of different ways, and I will get a little bit critical about that as well today. So the way I'm using humanizing is designing classes that leverage human connection to bolster motivation and learning in all modalities. We are social beings. We crave affinity with others to the degree that we scan environments continuously, looking for cues of inclusion. And we either find them or we don't find, we either detect red cues, right? Or we detect green cues, or we detect no cues. And it's actually when you detect no cues that your brain is the most actively scanning because it's ambiguous. And human connection is one of those things that we are seeking out, whether it be nonverbal or verbal or the way things are phrased in language. So it's very complex, and it all goes back to really the way our brains are wired and the thing that makes us human and distinguishes us from machines more than ever, okay? So that's what I mean by humanizing. And humanizing, from the research that we have done through the grant that I mentioned earlier, we have done actually a lot of different studies, and we have seen an increase in instructor to student interactions after faculty complete the Humanizing Online STEM Academy that we developed and offered. It's also linked with high rates of student belonging. And when I say it, we developed a model, an instructional model that includes certain elements. The liquid syllabus is one of them. And leveraging something called warm demand or pedagogy, which is what is linked back to culturally responsive teaching. And that high rates of belonging, by the way, was in asynchronous online STEM courses. Increased student success rates across all students, with bigger increases among Latino and women students in online STEM classes, and decreased racial equity gaps. And then on the faculty side, after completing the academy, from the surveys that we did with faculty before and after completing the academy, and also after teaching their class, we found that the professional development increased faculty's confidence with online teaching. Confidence is a big part of liking anything that you do, right? It's a big part of engagement. So when you don't really understand how to do something well, that's a hard space to be. I think you all know what I mean. And increased faculty awareness of student differences and supporting them. So more faculty reported that, which was exciting. An increase in the flexibility of their teaching structure. So a more willingness to get to know students and understand that, you know, turning something in late doesn't necessarily mean that a student doesn't care, or they're not able, or they haven't learned. There can be a lot of things that influence that. And an increased awareness that teaching influences who succeeds, which is that shift from a deficit mindset that the place where we were, I hope many years ago, where students were kind of the blame, right? And now it's more, the professional development has resulted in more faculty shifting towards what they're doing and thinking more mindfully about that. Now, one of the very important threads of humanizing, the pieces of research that inform this, is the interconnection between emotions and learning. We live in a culture that does not value emotions. And I want you to think about that. You know, maybe you don't agree with that position, but really think about that. It goes all the way back to as early as Descartes with the I think, therefore I am, and kind of this separation between thinking and feeling. And emotions are very gendered, right? They're very gendered female. And for men, it's, you know, it's associated often with weakness. So it's like, where does it fit in if like there's this, you know, it's just not, emotions are not valued. And I think as college educators, it's particularly interesting when you look at K-12 and how social and emotional learning does get addressed as something important. And then it's like all of a sudden someone's 18 and they're just supposed to turn that water off, right? Come on down, sit down and learn. So this quote here I think is it captures that idea. Emotions are not messy toddlers in a china shop running around breaking and obscuring delicate cognitive glassware. Instead, they're more like the shelves underlying the glassware. Without them, cognition has less support. And that is a quote from a book authored by two leading neuroscientists, Mary Helen Immordino Yang and Antonio Damasio. Damasio's work also, he is known for saying, we are not thinking machines. We are feeling machines that think. Now, amidst our social and emotional backdrop, we have a lot going on. I'm only looking at a little piece of it, okay? So I want to recognize that you're going to walk out of here, she didn't talk about this, and she didn't talk about that, and yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot to talk about. But one of the things that I really want to emphasize is in 2023, the US Surgeon General put out a report about the loneliness epidemic in the United States. In the report, and you may know about this, you may not. Like some people are like, oh, I didn't know. Loneliness is defined as a subjective, distressing experience that results from perceived isolation or inadequate, meaningful connections, where inadequate refers to the discrepancy or unmet need between an individual's preferred and actual experience. That's complicated. But I think the important thing here is that it varies from person to person. What a person needs varies, right? So some people don't need as much quantity of interaction as other people. They need more quality, right? And so there's a lot of differences in there, just like learning is variable. But essentially, this epidemic is pretty startling. 1 in 2 US adults report as lonely. And if you're wondering, there is a loneliness scale. It's a survey that's been given for actually decades. And so we can look historically at changes. And people of color, low-income people, and young people are disproportionately impacted. The only subpopulation that I just mentioned that is new on that list is young people, 18 to 24-year-olds. Loneliness also has been found to increase the odds of dying early by 45%. It is reported to be the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So if we haven't heard about this, like, we have to ask why. We have to wonder, like, why is this not more of a big deal? And what can we do about it? Because, you know, this isn't just our students. This is us we're talking about. This is everyone. Everyone that you work with at Saddleback. This is everyone that's in the grocery store when you go shopping, right? The people in the cars next to you. Yeah, it's a big deal. And when we look at the data from loneliness, what's also very interesting is that there's different kinds of loneliness, and the kind of loneliness that has increased more in past decades is people report feeling lonely when they're around other people. Loneliness used to be about isolation, and that's why we saw higher increases amongst older people. And now, yeah, it's really shifting. It gives me goosebumps to talk about this. It's just, so we're gonna unpack that a little bit. And this is where we get into this thread, this theme, technology influences who we are. I know that AI is like a really big topic, right? And as teachers, it's on your mind a lot, I'm sure. Even when you really try not to think about it, it's still on your mind. And I interact with a lot of faculty in my role. I work at the state level, which, sorry, I didn't even say. My primary role is to support faculty with professional development, particularly for online teaching and learning. So technology has always been a big part of my work. I use a lot of technology. I'm not anti-technology. I am one who feels both a green light and a yellow light and a red light about AI all at the same time, which I personally think is a very healthy place to be right now. So let's take a look back at the past 25 years, the first 25 years of this century. In 2000, I forgot to correct that error, sorry. It should say 2001, 9/11 happened. So what does that have to do with technology? Well, that's when Homeland Security was implemented, right? And we started to have a lot more surveillance, right? So for those of you who remember back then, going to the airport was very different before 9/11, right? It's when you could know, now you can't like go wave goodbye to people after that. You can't go to the gate anymore. And like I grew up when my dad would go on business trips, like I'd walk all the way to the gate with him, you know, and I'd watch his plane take off. And it's just, it's a different experience. And surveillance technology has really spread beyond that into our streets, right? Shopping centers, everywhere. In 2005, Facebook and YouTube were founded. I can remember a student asking me if I'd heard about this thing called YouTube. And she explained it to me that you get to watch other people's videos. And I remember driving home that day thinking, that is the stupidest invention. Who would want to watch other people's videos, right? And think about the way it has impacted the way we live. I mean, you know, my husband's constantly like trying on YouTube, trying to figure out how to fix a fridge or what have you. And then I should also say with the rise of Facebook, which that was also like beyond comprehensible, the rate at which Facebook took off. I don't know if you remember these years, but I remember looking at the data being like, holy cow, like the millions and millions and millions of people like so quickly. And that started giving us an instant audience, right? An instant built-in audience to hear what's on our mind, to respond to our pictures. And in 2007, the iPhone was released, the first smartphone, which I also remember thinking, who is going to pay that much money? You know, that's never going to take off. I don't know why you guys are listening to me. And then in 2012, but the iPhone, so what's the big deal about the iPhone? Now all of that, the YouTube and the Facebook now, right, is in our hands. And so the sharing gets increased because now we're sharing like mobily, right? And it's also a multimedia studio that is in the hands of someone with an iPhone. In 2012, Sherry Turkle, who's a psychologist at MIT, described us as connected but alone. And I think I have a quote from her here, yes, or a concept. The rising popularity of asynchronous texting, which also came about with smartphones, right? In place of voice or phone calls, the synchronous, hear a person's voice, those cues of warmth and synchronicity, that was creating the feeling that nobody was listening to us, which was part of her premise. And then we have the rise of social media alongside of that, built-in audience. In 2013, DoorDash was founded, and so again, symbolic of all the services that are now, you know, able to be delivered to our homes. And by 2014, 85% of 18 to 9-year-olds own their own smartphone. In 2015, Amazon surpasses Walmart. 2016, TikTok was founded. In 2020, COVID, shelter in place. In 2024, Jonathan Haidt writes The Anxious Generation, and here's a quote from that author. Gen Z became the first generation in history to go through puberty with a portal in their pockets that called them away from the people nearby and into an alternative universe that was exciting, addictive, unstable, and unsuitable for children and adolescents. That's when AI was introduced to the mainstream. Like, that's a compelling and I don't even know what the words to describe it. You know, but when we think about AI in that context, which I don't think happens a lot, at least from my experiences, I start to think about it a little bit differently. Sorry, we're going to get a little bit darker before it gets brighter. There is a type of AI that we also don't hear a lot about that I want to introduce to you because I think it's really important. It's known as emotional AI, and it's based on probably 75 years of research. I think it was back in the 1950s when researchers started to analyze facial expressions and correlate them with emotions. And also data about the human voice and how it sounds when it feels a certain way, and that sort of data. That's the data that informs emotional AI. So it's not like the large language model, it's a different type of data. But algorithms are still created with that data. So emotional AI uses machines to guess and respond to how humans or the users of products are feeling. And it's trained on that research using verbal and nonverbal cues. Now, some of the risks of emotional AI, first of all, is that verbal and nonverbal cues do not necessarily mirror a person's emotions. As humans, I think you can relate to that, right? I mean, we intentionally in society try to mask how we're feeling sometimes for whatever reason. Facial recognition software is biased. It's shown to be more likely to exclude individuals with Black and brown skin, particularly women of color. The prediction of feelings based on external expression results in emotional stereotypes and algorithmic bias. In other words, differences get left out, right? So facial expressions and the way we emote vocally is very deeply influenced by culture. And neurodivergence also gets left out, as well as lots of other differences. And so that's definitely a risk. And then the fourth risk that I have on this slide here is that machines could start to replace humans in relationships, which seems still like far away, but folks, it's everywhere. I'm going to show you an advertisement for a product that is now available for pre-order. It's called Friend, and it's a device that one is encouraged to wear around their neck. It's a little hard to see, so do your best with it, and we'll talk about it.
Gosh, I'm out of breath. So we made it. I don't know how to woo very good. That's fair. All right, let's go.
Let me show you how to game, bro, okay? Oh, come on, come on. Oh, let's go!
Are you serious? Come on, man. I hate this game.
Take notes, baby.
Oh, man, you guys suck.
Bro, you look like the back
Let's
of the...
go. Let's go.
Dude, what? How did you do that?
I know the effects are crazy. It's dank. I could eat one of these every day. Sorry, I got you messy.
It's really nice up here. How'd you find this place?
I don't know. I just kind of like to come up here to be by myself. I've never brought anybody else. I mean, besides her.
She goes everywhere with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess I must be doing something right then.
I guess so. We'll see.
It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to process. You'll probably be thinking about that one for a while. I know some of you are looking like, are you serious? She's about to say this is a joke, right? No, this is real. Yeah, comments, thoughts? Who's that marketed to, obviously? Yes, in the back.
So I went to a conference not that long ago, and they did a thing on generations, and they showed something similar where everyone in the room was like, oh, like with the reaction we just had. And then she asked who the youngest person, like if there was anybody of this generation in the room, and that person like stood up and had a completely different perspective on what was being talked about. And so I was blown away by that, because I do think, like, I don't know, I'm experiencing this, right, the same feeling, but I wonder if there's somebody in the room who's like, I totally get it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And for those of you on Zoom, I have not forgotten about you. Well, I did for a second, but I did remember about you. I know you can't hear the comment, but the comment was that she was recently at an event that had a multi-generational audience, and there was a young person in the room who understood what was the alarming example in a very different way. Yeah. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. I'm sorry. There's a whole marketplace of emotional AI apps out there. And some of you are shaking your head. You know about this stuff. There's I think it's represented on the screen somewhere, but Character AI is a tool that you can go to and talk to anyone, create the character. So it could be like a fictitious movie character that, like, you know, there's lots of data on, and so the tool pulls the data about that fictitious character, and then all of a sudden that's the person you're talking to and developing a relationship with. Sadly, there was an incident with a young boy, I believe he was 14 years old, who was in a relationship with a character AI and took his life. And the mother did not know what the conversations looked like until it was too late. But those guardrails weren't there. And so when he started talking about feeling that he might harm himself, there was like a encouragement that was starting to happen on the other side of the screen, or I guess there isn't even another side of the screen. And then the snippet in the lower right corner that says, "It was as if my father were actually texting me." This is an industry called grief AI. Again, goosebumps. Where people are paying to have replicas made of their loved ones who have passed away, and continuing to have dialogue with that chatbot that is mirroring that person. And so that, you know, the grief process is now being commodified, essentially. So my perspective here, connection is a basic human need, and human relationships are not something that can or should be automated. And I want to say that this is really complex, and I know that we have a tendency to take, like, you know, in our culture, like this position or that position. And I'm not saying that there may not be an instance where someone could benefit, but I'm kind of taking a perspective of society at large, and just imagining, you know, young people sending these links, like, get me this for Christmas, Mom or Dad, and it getting purchased without even like really critically looking at what it is and how it's influencing individuals. So with that said, let's take a look at this. This was your, okay, let me tell you what we're looking at. When you walked in the room, I asked you to, and the folks in Zoom, well, I hope you were able to do it with a QR code. That should have worked. Yeah, so we have a word cloud here that represents words that lots of people have responded. So I've been doing this for a couple years now, and 1,262 people have responded to this. And so the bigger words represent the descriptors that have been shared the most in response to that very exact same question you responded to about your memorable educators. And I'm just going to pull up this summary because it's easier to read. So the top words that came in, number 1, caring, number 2, kind, encouraging, passionate, and supportive. So, let me go back here. Oops. Those words describe something that Alison Pugh calls connective labor. And Alison Pugh is a sociologist. I'm still reading her book. I started it last week, and it has like blown my mind. The book is called The Last Human Job, Connecting in a Disconnected World. It's really good. And she's talking about different jobs that involve what she calls connective labor. And it's not every job, but one of them is teaching. And so here's a quote from Pugh. Connective labor refers to a type of work that primarily focuses on building and maintaining human connections, often through empathy, active listening, and fostering personal relationships, rather than solely producing tangible goods or services. It's considered a vital part of professions like healthcare, teaching, therapy, and social work, where genuine human interaction is key to providing value. She goes on to explain how, while that is true, connective labor is rendered invisible and not important. You ever feel that way? And the jobs that are done, when they're done superbly, like the memorable educators that you thought of, right? It's life-changing. You remember these people for the rest of your life. But the systems that these jobs work within undermine the ability to deliver, to provide that connective labor, right? Because we have so many students, and educational systems are, supposed to be very efficient, and we measure learning by the amount of hours in a seat, even though we know that's not the way learning really happens. So it's very fascinating. And when we get to that point where connective labor is rendered invisible, and like we start saying, well, we just don't have time for that, we put it away, that is when we are most susceptible for having bots take over that connective labor. And it's also, I want to link it back with loneliness. I didn't make this connection with the friend, but that friend device is coming out at this time because of the loneliness epidemic, right? It's coming out because that's an opportunity to make money. And another thing that Pugh talks about is having a human tend to your needs, that connective labor. Connective labor, she describes as it's the interaction between two people where one person makes the other person feel seen. She calls it a luxury good and goes on to say the distribution of connective labor is profoundly unequal across populations and likely to become even more so. In the future, the people at the top may get their connective labor from the people at the bottom, who in turn get theirs from a bot. So folks, as we sit here as teachers who serve the most vulnerable student population, we have to really be thinking about how we use AI. I do understand and recognize that we're preparing students for a workforce that we don't know what it's going to look like, right? And it is going to include AI. And there will be employers that, aren't going to hire someone without certain AI skills. And we're still figuring all that out. But I just want you to tuck this in your pocket, because there's a lot of businesses, companies out there that are vying on, I'm going to make your life easier, right? Because I'm going to do this for you. Well, whatever that this thing is, if that this involves interactions with students, you hold on to that. That's your role. Like when I think about using AI to grade, I think no, because I know that for students, like that can be the most precious communication from an instructor, right? I mean, I'll use AI to help me give feedback better. There's a model called Wise Feedback, and you can use generative AI to like share, this is the feedback I'm going to give. How could I improve it to align with the Wise feedback model, which is actually linked with closing equity gaps? So there are lots of ways to use AI, but I believe that communications from instructors to students need to be authentic. So I think of human connection as your superpower in the AI era. Each of us can start, and this is from the US Surgeon General report, each of us can start now in our own lives by strengthening our connections and relationships. Our individual relationships are an untapped resource, a source of healing hiding in plain sight. They can help us live healthier, more productive, and more fulfilled lives. Answer that phone call from a friend, or make that phone call to a friend. Make time to share a meal. Listen without the distraction of your phone. Perform an act of service. Express yourself authentically. The keys to human connection are simple but extraordinarily powerful. And when I read that, not only do I think about like peer-to-peer, colleague-to-colleague interactions, there are opportunities for assignments in there, right? Do you see that? So I think this is what we need to be doing intentionally, is infusing more human connection, not only in our interactions with students and our student-to-student interactions, but in assignments, which are clearly in need of change with generative AI on the scene. Yeah, I just read that. Okay. So again, we're at a crossroads. I want to emphasize that again. The way we use technology shapes who we are. And that's what I think is so profound about this moment, is that like we do get to decide. So everyone's going to feel differently. But as we move forward, 4 ways to center human connection in the AI era for teachers. First of all, the first one is just something that I want you to remember. How a person feels influences their performance. Hands down, 100%. And you can relate that to any part of your own life. And to build onto that a little bit, this is actually taken from a research study about AI, which had research questions. They were trying to identify, well, what kind of students cheat? Which is a weird research question, not one that I particularly like. But they had students fill out these different kinds of personality surveys to assess, and one of them was a narcissist survey. One of them was Machiavellianism. There were a bunch of them, but the only one that was linked, that was correlated with cheating, was apathy. Apathy. I don't care. So humans are motivated when we sense that we matter, we care about what we're doing, and we feel capable. I think if we remember that with everything that we do with teaching, not only in interactions, but the way we design our interactions and the way our materials look, right? And the way we kind of facilitate conversations and invite people into the conversation, and the feedback that we give, it matters. This is a super quick video of a different student, not the one you see here, who's going to describe interactions with one of his instructors. And he was in a class that was taught by an instructor who completed the Humanizing Online STEM Academy. Just listen to what he says.
One time, I got a lower score on my second exam than my first exam, so she reached out to me and asked me if everything was good. As a student, we have a lot of things going on in our life. It showed that she doesn't only care about my learning, but me as a human being. And because of that one little thing that she reached out to me, that made me do even better on my third exam.
It's not, that's why we're
Yeah. I mean, it's those little things, those little things. Knowing that you, like, someone sees you and believes in you. It gets students to lean, it gets humans to lean in, right? When you're in an online class and it doesn't seem like the instructor really cares about what's going on because there's no presence, or I don't know. I mean, it's been shown that like when there's typos on a page, that actually sends the cue that nobody cares about this. It's really interesting the way that what we see, what we engage with impacts our motivation. Number 2, build trust through your imperfect, authentic presence. I love this one. This is my favorite one. I'm not going to have time to play this video, but it's in my slides and I welcome you to watch it. It's a video that we actually have participants view in the Humanizing Academy, and it just kind of introduces a little bit more of the why behind why a liquid syllabus matters. But what a liquid syllabus is, it is, it keeps happening. That video sounds like it's playing again. What a liquid syllabus is it's a public website that gets sent out to students the week before classes by an instructor, and it doesn't have assignments in it. It's very welcoming. It's written in a warm, welcoming tone, and it gives students transparent information about this is what's going to happen next week at the first week of class. These are the assignments you're going to have. This is when they're going to be due. And here's some tips I have for you about how to be successful this week. So kind of taking off some of the unknown, making things really clear. And the human brain loves clarity. I've heard the phrase that clear is kind, and I really love that. I think that's beautiful. But it also includes your imperfect human presence, right? At the top of the liquid syllabus is a video of you. And so smiling, right? Sending these cues of inclusion. And it's a huge opportunity. Folks, there was research done so long ago, the research was done on VHS tapes, I'm not kidding, that shows that the human brain can watch a 30-second clip of a person. Like they did it with all different times, and I think 30 seconds was the briefest one. And this has been tested in all different contexts, including college teaching. And after the 30 seconds, the research, people in the research study completed, like, what do you think of this person? And responded to some questions, and then took a whole class with the person. And at the end, there was no difference. Like the way the human brain makes a decision about another person quickly is stunning. And I think these really brief asynchronous videos, like let's leverage asynchronous communications in a really powerful way. This is the best way I think we can do it. And it's a public web page because when you come to a login screen, when you're feeling nervous about the next week, it's just another message that, oh, you haven't figured that out yet, you know? So we want to take away the barriers, and that's why we encouraged folks to make it public. Google Sites is a great tool for it. It supports UDL through multiple means of representation, verbal and nonverbal cues, and of course, designing the content with accessibility in mind is an important part of the process as well. These are 4 different liquid syllabi made by 4 different people. I love how different they all are. The point here is like, you know, make it like your fingerprint. Like, use the colors you like help students get to know kind of a feeling about you. And the videos at the top, some of them introduce students to their family. Some of them talk about where they like to go for vacation. You know, it's the getting a little bit outside of the academic in us and letting students in right off the bat. This is my liquid syllabus, which you're welcome to go check out, but I wanted to play this video real quick so you could see.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Pacansky-Brock, and I'm going to be your online instructor this term. I look forward to getting to know you, and I want to say thanks for taking a couple minutes out of your time to watch this video.
So I'm not going to play that whole thing, but the reason I want you to see this is because this is another way AI is coming into the picture.
Hi there, how are you today? Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I'm looking forward to getting to know you and supporting you throughout our semester-long journey together. I believe teaching online is a valuable and important component of supporting students to achieve their goals, and I'm delighted to be your online instructor. Before you get started with the class, I'd like you to know that I see learning as a partnership between you and me and the rest of the scholars in our class. My role is to be clear about my expectations of you.
Notice anything a little weird about that video? What's missing from it? What's off? Humanity, warmth. Anything else? Say what? Emotion. The verbal and the nonverbal, really the nonverbal are off, right? Yeah, this was made with a tool called Hey Gen, which is in the lower right corner, because I only have a free account and I'm not planning to pay for it. But I do think it's important to talk about this. And you know what? I actually think this is going to have a place in teaching to some degree. I'm still figuring that out. I'm actually working with a group of 12 educators right now. We're meeting 6 times, an hour and a half each time over this term, and we're kicking the tires on these tools and asking our questions. What's going on here? How do we process this? Like, where does this fit in? And I think that's what we need to be doing.
Hi there.
Yeah, so
How are you today?
That's an example of, right, connective labor being taken over by AI. But here's another use of that same tool.
Hola. ¿Cómo estás hoy? Gracias por tomarte el tiempo de ver este video. Estoy deseando conocerte y apoyarte a lo largo de nuestro viaje juntos durante el semestre.
I do not speak Spanish. Yeah, I can translate it into any language I want. So, you know, folks,
Hola.
it's interesting, and I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to read this quote, but what it does is it's a demonstration of what one of the surprises Allison Pugh found in her research about connective labor. It's written by an instructor who completed the academy and wrote to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I feel so alive," because she was making these connections with her students and hadn't done it before. And that's what her research shows, is that it's an exchange that benefits both the person doing the seeing and the person being seen. She calls it an emotional handshake. And I think that's important for us to know, because we need that in our lives. Build trust through transparency. I'm running out of time, so this is going to be real quick, but I want to encourage folks, this is your call how you proceed with this, but I have found a lot of value in this resource here. It's called the AI Assessment Scale by Perkins, Furs, Rowe, and McVaugh, who are educators, by the way. So it's made by teachers for teachers. And it has these 5 different uses, 5 different levels of using AI. And the intention is to take one of those levels and attach it to each of your assignments. So instead of having one policy for a whole class, keeping in mind that each student may have 5 classes and they're supposed to remember the policy, and it's very murky right now because AI has what's called a jagged edge, which means, oh, I didn't know there was AI in that tool, right? Anyway, this is a really helpful way to start thinking about how you may include AI or have your students use AI in different assignments. So that's something you can read through later, and I have the link to the full scale article and all the goodies on the site that I gave you. And then lastly, I hope to encourage you to start thinking about assessment. We are moving away from products and emphasizing process more. That is where I believe we are headed. And so we're going to be looking more at process and the formative aspects of learning. And as we do that, start to imagine how you could create an assignment. And again, I use Canvas as my example, right? Because that's basically where I live with my professional development. But then have students go out into the world. The assignment is a prompt to go talk to people, to go interact with people. Like, start thinking about that. Because what that does is you can think about it as data. It has students collect or create data that they then bring back into your class. And then when they go into a discussion, they're talking about something that they made, right? And so the intrinsic motivation is something that gets people to care also and reduces that apathy. So we need to start thinking about ways and to also bring in human connection. And talk to students, like what message would that say if like, I have human connection designed into my assignments because we have a loneliness epidemic and I'm worried about that. I'm worried about you, I'm worried about me. And these little things really matter. And if you're thinking that that's the kind of interaction that doesn't matter, it actually does. There's been studies that show there are weak ties and strong ties when it comes to human connection. And there's been studies that have taken out the weak ties, and the weak tie could be like the barista that you see at the coffee place every morning. You don't know much about them, but you have a nice exchange. Or someone you regularly, one of the researchers talked about someone who was at a hot dog stand that she passed every day, and then one day the hot dog stand wasn't there, and she was like, I felt a profound loss. So those weak ties really matter. Yeah, so something to think about. Use photographs. Again, I know this is discipline-specific stuff, but I have a tip for you. But photographs are just such a beautiful way. Everybody has photographs. If you can relate photography in some way, like to something that you're studying, and have someone meet with someone to talk about the photograph. And it's also a way of demonstrating how photographs are primary sources, right? So you can watch this later, but this is just it's a video clip of a student from one of my online classes. I use VoiceThread, and I had them go find an old photograph and tell us the story. And so she's talking about this photograph of her mother. Actually, no, it wasn't her mother, it's a grandmother, but she's telling about the interaction she had with her mother and how that interaction happened on Mother's Day. And yeah, it's a beautiful little interaction. Now, if you're struggling for ideas, this makes me really happy because I've done presentations for a long time. And when I used to do presentations about VoiceThread, at the end, I'd get like, how do you use that in physics? And I go, I don't know. But now with Gen AI, it is a fabulous way to brainstorm, folks. And if you haven't tried it yet, please do this. That's the interface of Claude. That's the Gen AI tool that I like to use. And I have examples here from physics, chemistry, geology that all involve human interactions. And I took these, I read through them. I deleted a couple that didn't really have human interaction. You have to check everything when you use AI. Here's examples for biology, environmental science, astronomy, art history, music, theater, performance, history, literature, philosophy. I know I didn't get everyone, but I'm just trying to prove a point. And if you want to try it, here is a prompt. You can actually copy and paste this prompt, fill in the areas that I prompt you to fill in, and see what it brings you. And then here's the thing, when you're using Gen AI, if you're not already, I assume a lot of you are, I assume some of you aren't, revisiting the prompt, like giving it another prompt is key. So don't just look at it like fix it, dig deeper. Like here I gave some examples, like a follow-up prompt might be, provide more ideas that facilitate cross-generational learning using photographs. Or provide step-by-step instructions in a grading rubric for option 7. It will produce a grading rubric. And here is a more specific prompt. Once you have your activity that you want, design clear and succinct student instructions for this activity. The assignment will be submitted in Canvas and will be due on Sunday at 11:59. List the steps in a numbered list and include a rubric with at least 3 criteria and 3 levels of proficiency for each criterion. Use these titles for the 3 levels of proficiency. Bravo, almost there, and you're on your way. It will do it for you. And again, check what it produces. Okay, and yeah, if it's not good enough, it's something you can build from. And I heard someone say recently, like, we're moving into an era where we're not gonna have a blank page to start with. There's gonna be something that we start with. And those are the new skills that we're going to have to start thinking about and honing. Yeah, that was the activity that I was including at the bottom. So those are my 4 ideas for centering humanity in the AI era. Remember, how a person feels influences her performance, build trust through your imperfect, authentic presence, build trust through transparency, and design assignments that serve as connection catalysts. These are 3 books that have also influenced me that I just wanted to mention if anyone's interested in digging deeper other than the Allison Pugh book. And that is my last slide, folks. And we've got 4 minutes. If there's someone who has maybe one question, I think we might have time for that. I know it's hard to, it's like the brain isn't ready for questions right away, but if there's something resonating with you that you want to share, hi. Yeah, so not so much. Do we want to have her talk in the mic? Sorry, it's for our folks in Zoom.
So not so much a question, more kind of just a comment and building off of the idea of utilizing AI in the classroom in, ethical and appropriate ways. So my husband actually owns an AI training business. So I've learned a lot about AI over the last 1.5, 2 years. And one of the things that he teaches that I've sort of embraced and used in my classroom and have found to be profoundly helpful is not only having those ideal prompts, but it's something called priming, where you actually just have a conversation with the AI being like, hey, this is the context, like I teach this subject, right? I try to achieve this and that. So you kind of get it just thinking about the topic first, and you can even ask, like, who are some, prominent scholars in my field who I might want to consider when I'm thinking about these things? What are some ideal practices? So it's already sort of in the AI's brain before you plug in, which that prompt was beautiful, by the way, before you plug in that prompt, and then you tend to get even more in-depth responses that are clearer and really impactful and helpful. It's helped me redesign my entire asynchronous course. Like I went to AI and was like, you exist now. What do I do to make sure my students aren't using you to cheat, but rather using you as like a constructive tool? And it kind of helped me to redesign a lot of my assignments. And it was really, really good. And so far this semester, my students seem to be enjoying the assignments more. I brought my husband in as a guest speaker, and they were very receptive to that. And most of them were like, yeah, we've been using ChatGPT, but we've been using it like a search engine, which is what you're not supposed to do, right? And so I think finding space in the classroom to teach them how to use it ethically, because like you said, they are going to use it when they graduate and they go off to their professions. Yeah, just that.
Thank you for sharing. That's really helpful.
We have time for one more?
Sure, I do. I don't know about everybody else.
I am on the opposite end of the spectrum as Taylor. I have never purposefully used AI. I'm sure I have, but never on purpose. It's terrified me. I'm excited. This was great. I really liked it. And now I'm seeing some tools that I've been like, no, not interested, just going to stay as is. We have to evolve. And so I'm on board. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And thank you for your being honest. Yes, that's appreciated.
Well, I'm going to jump in because I do think it's 1:30, so out of respect for your time, if you have to leave, that's okay. But I do think Michelle said maybe she has a little bit of time to answer questions one-on-one if you want to stay after and pick her brain for a second. But before she goes, let's give her a heartfelt, emotional, warm hand.
Thank you for all the work you do, people.
Will you be able to email me a link that I can share?
Yeah, it's right there.
Okay. Yeah, so all of my CRPP folks, I'll make sure you have this link so you could revisit this video, because now you're going to go work on your own syllabus and see how we can humanize it, make it warmer.
Thank you.